My own daughter looked me in the eye and screamed that she wished I was dead, just so she could inherit my house and money immediately. That was her sick, twisted response when I refused to let her move her 45-year-old married boyfriend into the home my late husband built for us. My name is Naomi, and I am living a nightmare. I spent 23 years shielding Lily from the world, giving her a debt-free education and a life of privilege, only to have her open the door to a predator named Mark. I am shaking as I write this because I have just discovered the horrifying truth. This is not a romance. It is a haste. Mark is not divorcing his wife. He is conspiring with her to manipulate my naive daughter, seize my assets, and leave me with absolutely nothing. The betrayal burns worse than fire because the person handing them the match is my own child. I am sitting here with the evidence that could send them to prison, but using it means destroying my daughter's world and potentially losing her forever. Does a mother save her child from a monster, even if the child hates her for it? I feel like I am drowning in my own home. Please, I need someone to listen. What would you do? My name is Naomi Vance. I am 52 years old, though the mirror in my foyer insists I look older these days. I am a widow, a former interior designer, and the sole owner of a 5-bedroom colonial revival in Greenwich, Connecticut, that is far too large for 2 people. My husband, David, passed away 4 years ago, leaving me with a substantial life insurance policy, a diversified portfolio, and a silence in this house that is so heavy it sometimes feels like a physical weight pressing against my chest. From the outside, my life looks like the American dream preserved in amber. The lawns are manicured by a service every Tuesday. The siding is pristine white. The shutters are a tasteful charcoal gray. I spend my mornings volunteering at the local Heritage Society and my afternoons managing a household that requires no management because there is no life in it. We have everything. We are safe. We are comfortable, but comfort is a dangerous thing. It makes you slow. It makes you blind. I stood at the kitchen island, staring at the marble countertop. It was cold under my fingertips. I was chopping rosemary for the roast chicken, the knife rhythmically hitting the wooden board. Chop, chop, chop. It was the only sound in the house, other than the low hum of the Sub-Zero refrigerator. In the living room, my daughter, Lily, was sprawled across the Restoration Hardware sofa like a cat that had found the only patch of sunlight in a dark room. Lily is 23 years old. She dropped out of her communications degree at New York University 6 months ago because she felt the curriculum was too restrictive for her creative spirit. Since then, her creativity has mostly manifested in online shopping and binge-watching reality television. I stopped chopping and looked at her through the open archway. She was beautiful. I could not deny that. She had David's dark eyes and my jawline, but there was a slackness to her posture, an arrogance in the way she let her empty iced coffee cup sweat onto the expensive coffee table without a coaster. I should have told her to use a coaster. I should have told her to pick up the 3 shopping bags from Nordstrom that were currently blocking the hallway. Just say it. Naomi. I thought, tell her to get up. Tell her to act like an adult. Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. Honey, I said instead, my voice smooth and practiced. Okay, Lily replied, not looking away from her phone. Her thumbs moved across the screen with a dexterity she never applied to job applications. I turned back to the chicken. This was my fault. I knew it. When David died, Lily was 19. She was Daddy's little girl, and his death shattered her. To fix it, to stop her tears, I did the only thing I knew how to do. I cushioned her world. I paid for everything. I solved every problem before it could touch her. I wanted to protect her from pain, but I think I only succeeded in protecting her from reality. Now, she was a 23-year-old woman who believed the world owed her happiness simply because she existed. We sat down to dinner at the small round table in the breakfast nook. The formal dining room felt too cavernous for just the two of us. I poured myself a glass of Chardonnay. Lily was drinking sparkling water, her eyes still darting toward her phone, which she had placed face up on the table next to her plate. No phones at the table. Lily, I said gently. She sighed. A long, dramatic exhalation that suggested I had just asked her to donate a kidney. She flipped the phone over, but did not put it away. So, I started trying to inject some cheerfulness into the stale air between us. Did you hear back from that marketing agency in Stamford? The one your aunt recommended? Lily picked at her chicken, pushing a roasted potato around her plate with her fork. I did not apply. I paused, my glass halfway to my mouth. You did not apply? Lily, we talked about this. It was a perfect entry-level position. It is an office job. Mom, she said, looking up at me with a look of genuine confusion, as if I had suggested she work in a coal mine. 9 to 5. Sitting in a cubicle, it is soul-crushing. I cannot flourish in that kind of environment. I need something that speaks to me. I took a sip of wine. It tasted sour. Soul-crushing. I thought, do you know what is soul-crushing? Watching your savings account bleed out to pay for a gap year that has turned into a gap life. You need health insurance. Lily, you turn 26 in 3 years. You need to build a resume. You always worry about money. She snapped, her tone shifting instantly from bored to defensive. Dad would not be on my case like this. He wanted me to be happy. That was her trump card. The dead father defense. She played it whenever reality got too close. I want you to be happy too, I said, my voice tight. But happiness requires purpose. Lily dropped her fork. It clattered loudly against the china. She looked at me, her eyes suddenly brimming with a frantic, manic energy. This was the shift I had been noticing lately. She was moody, oscillating between lethargy and intense, almost feverish excitement. I have a purpose, she said. Actually, that is what I wanted to talk to you about. I met someone. My stomach tightened. In the past, Lily's boyfriends had been a parade of aspiring disc jockeys, personal trainers with no clients, and poets who borrowed money for cigarettes. Oh, I kept my face neutral. Who is he? His name is Mark, she said, her face softened, a blush rising on her cheeks. Mom, he is different. He is older. He is mature. He understands me. He is a businessman, an entrepreneur. We have a connection that is Saoiteng Doi, cosmic. It is like we have known each other in a past life. Older? I asked. How old? 45, she said quickly. I choked on my wine. 45? Lily, he is my age. He is old enough to be your father. Age is just a number. Mom, she waved her hand dismissively. You are so old-fashioned. Mark is young at heart. He has this energy. He treats me like a queen, not like those immature boys from college. I set my glass down. A 45-year-old man dating a 23-year-old unemployed girl. The red flags were not just waving. They were on fire. What does this Mark do for a living? I asked, trying to sound like a curious mother rather than an interrogator. He is in Saoiteng. Tuhash is greater than investments, she said vaguely. He is between ventures right now because of some bad luck with a partner who screwed him over. But he has big plans, huge plans. Between ventures. Bad luck. I had heard these phrases before. They were the siren songs of the incompetent and the grifters. Lily, I said, keeping my voice low, I am happy you are happy. But please be careful. A man that age, Sayu Jing Hao Ling, R. Jing Hao Dayu, there is something else. She interrupted, and for the first time, she looked nervous. She began shredding a paper napkin with her manicured fingers. He is going through a really hard time right now. His living situation is Xiaoyu Jing Ling. 2 hash is greater than complicated. I felt a cold prickle on the back of my neck. Complicated how? He is married, she whispered. The silence that followed was absolute. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator again. I stared at my daughter, waiting for the punchline. Excuse me? I said. It is not what you think. Lily leaned forward, her eyes pleading. They have been separated emotionally for years. His wife is a monster. Mom, she is controlling. She is abusive. She manages all his money and does not let him have access to anything. She is practically holding him hostage. He stays for the sake of Xiao Jinghao Ling. 2 hash is greater than well. He is trying to leave, but she is making it impossible. I closed my eyes for a second. The story was so cliché, it was almost insulting. The evil wife, the misunderstood husband, the young savior. Lily, I said, opening my eyes. He is married. If he is unhappy, he should file for divorce and move out. He is 45 years old. He cannot, she cried. She froze his accounts. She kicked him out of the guest house last night. He is sleeping in his car. Mom, a man of his stature, sleeping in a Honda Civic. It breaks my heart. She took a deep breath, and I knew, with a sinking dread, what was coming next. I told him he could stay here. She said, no. I said instantly. The word was out of my mouth before she even finished the sentence. Mom, please, just for the weekend, just until he can access his emergency funds. He can sleep in the guest suite. He will not bother you, I promise. Lily, absolutely not. I am not having a married man sleep in my house. I am not getting involved in a domestic dispute. This is insane. Lily's face contorted. The pleading vanished, replaced by a cold, hard anger. You do not understand love. You never did. That is why Daddy was always working. Was it not? Because he could not stand being around your judgment. The words hit me like a physical slap. I sat back, stunned. He needs help, Lily hissed. Humanitarian help. And you have this giant empty house with rooms that have not been opened in months. You are just selfish. You want me to be alone forever because you are alone. That is not true, I stammered, my hands shaking beneath the table. Then prove it, she challenged. Let him stay. Just for dinner tomorrow. Meet him. If you meet him, you will see he is a good man. Do not be the villain in my love story. Mom, I looked at her, really looked at her. This was not just a request. This was a test. She was manipulating me, using my own fear of loneliness and my guilt over her father's death as leverage. She is a child, I told myself. She is being manipulated by him. If I push her away now, she will run to him. I took a deep breath. I needed to be smart. I needed to see this man, assess the threat, and then dismantle him if I forbade it. She would sneak out. If I brought him into the light, perhaps I could expose him. Dinner, I said, my voice trembling slightly. He can come for dinner tomorrow night, but he does not sleep here. He does not stay. And if I smell even a hint of trouble, Lily, he is out. Do you understand? Lily clapped her hands, her face instantly transforming back into that of a delighted child. Oh, thank you. Mom, you are the best. You will love him. I promise. She grabbed her phone and began typing furiously, likely sending the good news to her entrepreneur in the Honda Civic. I looked down at my cold roast chicken. I had lost my appetite. Outside the window, the sun had set, and the manicured lawn was swallowed by darkness. I felt a chill run through the house, a draft that no amount of insulation could keep out. I had opened the door. I had invited the wolf to the table, and God help me, I had no idea how sharp his teeth were. The morning of the dinner arrived with a sky the color of a bruised plum. Rain lashed against the French windows of the living room, distorting the view of the manicured hydrangeas into a watercolor blur. Inside, the house was silent, but it was not a peaceful silence. It was the heavy, pressurized silence of a bomb waiting to detonate. I had spent the last 3 hours cleaning a house that was already spotless. My hands smelled of lemon oil and anxiety. I polished the silver candlesticks on the dining table until my reflection in the metal looked warped and terrified. I told myself I was just being a good hostess. I told myself I wanted everything to be perfect for meeting this mark. But deep down, the voice in my head, the one I tried to drown out with the hum of the vacuum cleaner, whispered the truth. I was polishing the silver because I was afraid. I was afraid of what I would see when I looked into this man's eyes. I was afraid that my daughter was not just making a mistake, but walking into a trap I could not open. At noon, Lily came down the stairs. She was wearing a silk robe I had bought her for Christmas, the one that cost $300. Her eyes were red and swollen, and she clutched her phone to her chest like a lifeline. She did not look like a young woman in love. She looked like a tragedy in progress. She walked past me without a word and opened the refrigerator. She stared into it blindly. "Good morning," I said, wringing my polishing cloth in my hands. "I bought the ribeye steaks you like from Whole Foods. I thought we could do them with a red wine reduction." Lily slammed the refrigerator door. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the cavernous kitchen. "He is not coming," she said. Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion. I felt a mixture of relief and confusion. "What? Why not? Did something happen?" "He is in his car, Mom," she said, turning to face me. Her face crumpled. "It is pouring rain out there. The temperature has dropped to 40 degrees. He has been sleeping in the back seat of a Honda Civic for 2 nights because his wife froze his credit cards. He has a fever. He is sick." "Oh," I said. "Well, that is unfortunate. But surely he has friends, colleagues?" "He is proud," Lily shouted, her voice suddenly rising to a shriek. "He does not want them to see him like this. He is a businessman. He has a reputation." She took a step toward me, invading my personal space. I could smell her expensive perfume mixed with the stale scent of sleep. "He needs a bed, Mom, not dinner. He needs a place to recover." I told him he could come here. I told him he could stay in the guest suite until the banks open on Monday and he can access his trust. My stomach dropped. Here it was again, the boundary I had set just last night. "Lily," I said, keeping my voice steady, though my heart hammered against my ribs. "We discussed this. Dinner is fine. Overnight is not. I am not comfortable having a strange, married man sleeping in my house. It is inappropriate. Inappropriate? She laughed. A harsh, ugly sound. Is it inappropriate to help a human being who is suffering? Is that what the church taught you? Is that what Dad would have done? I stiffened. Do not bring your father into this. Dad would have given him the shirt off his back. She screamed. Tears began to stream down her face, ruining her perfect complexion. Dad was generous. He was kind. He did not care about what the neighbors thought. He did not care about your stupid rules or your precious antique furniture. He cared about people. I care about you. I pleaded. I am trying to protect you. Protect me? She scoffed. You are controlling me. You are jealous. That is what this is. You see me happy. You see me in love with a man who actually treats me like an adult, and you cannot stand it. You want me to be a miserable widow like you. You want me to stay in this house forever and polish silver until I die? The accusation took my breath away. It was so vicious, so calculated, jealous of my own daughter, wanting her to be miserable. Lily, that is absurd. I whispered. Is it? She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. Then prove it. Let him stay, just for the weekend. If you do not, you are literally killing him. He has pneumonia. Mom, do you want his death on your conscience? I looked at her. I saw the desperation in her eyes, but underneath it, I saw something else. A flicker of triumph. She was testing the lock. She was seeing how far she could twist the knife before I broke. But something in me hardened. Perhaps it was the mention of David. David, who worked 60 hours a week to buy this house. David, who would never have let a grifter sleep under his roof. No, I said. The word hung in the air, solid and immovable. I will not change my mind. If he is sick, he should go to the hospital. I will pay for the emergency room visit, but he is not sleeping here. Lily stared at me for a long moment. The color drained from her face. She looked at me not with anger, but with pure, unadulterated hatred. Fine, she spat. Then I am not eating your stupid steak. And I am not talking to you until you find your humanity. She turned on her heel and stormed out of the kitchen. I heard her footsteps pounding up the stairs, followed by the definitive slam of her bedroom door. Then, the click of the lock. The silence returned, but now it was suffocating. I stood alone in the kitchen. The ribeye steak sat on the counter, turning room temperature. The house felt enormous. It felt like a museum dedicated to a family that no longer existed. I walked over to the island and leaned against it, closing my eyes. Am I wrong? The question slithered into my mind like a snake. Maybe she is right. Maybe I am being too rigid. It is just a weekend. It is just a guest room. We have 5 bedrooms. Why am I guarding them like a fortress? I thought about Mark shivering in a car. I felt a pang of guilt. It was the guilt of the wealthy, the guilt of the comfortable. I had so much, and I was refusing to share it. But he is married. My rational mind argued. He is a 45-year-old man who cannot support himself. That is not bad luck. That is a lifestyle choice. I spent the rest of the day in a haze. I did not cook the steak. I ate a piece of dry toast over the sink. I walked past Lily's door 3 times. I put my ear to the wood. I could hear her talking, her voice low and muffled. She was talking to him. She was apologizing for me. She was painting a picture of a cruel, heartless mother who hoarded her wealth and delighted in the suffering of others. By 6 o'clock in the evening, The house was dark. I sat in the living room with a glass of wine, staring at the rain. I felt a profound sense of isolation. This was Lily's weapon. She knew I could not stand the silence. She knew that my greatest fear was not losing money, but losing her. She was weaponizing her presence. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was a text from my friend, Beatrice, from the Homeowners Association. Hi Naomi, just reminding you about the book club meeting at your place on Tuesday. So excited to see the new landscaping. I stared at the screen. The book club. I had completely forgotten. 12 women from the neighborhood were coming to my house in 3 days. A wave of exhaustion washed over me. How could I host a party when my daughter was holding herself hostage upstairs? How could I pretend everything was fine when my own child looked at me with such disdain? I heard a noise upstairs. A door opening. I held my breath, hoping she was coming down, hoping she was hungry, hoping she would apologize. But the footsteps went to the bathroom, then back to the bedroom. Click. The lock turned again. She was punishing me. She was showing me what my life would be like if I pushed her away. A big, empty house, a locked door, and silence. I took a sip of wine. It tasted like vinegar. Maybe I should just let him stay. I thought, the weakness spreading through me, just for one night, just to stop the fighting, just to see her smile at me again. I looked at the portrait of David hanging above the fireplace. His eyes seemed to follow me, filled with disappointment. Stay strong. Naomi, he seemed to say, do not let them in. But David was dead, and I was here, alive and alone, with a daughter who knew exactly where to hurt me to get what she wanted. I poured another glass of wine, the bottle clinking loudly against the crystal rim. The sound was sharp, like the first crack in a pane of glass before it shatters completely. Tuesday evening arrived with the sort of aggressive humidity that makes the air feel heavy, like a wet wool blanket draped over the world. My living room, however, was a sanctuary of climate-controlled perfection. The thermostat was set to a crisp 68 degrees. The scent of fresh white lilies, arranged in crystal vases on every surface, masked the lingering smell of lemon polish. I was hosting the monthly meeting of the Greenwich Heritage Preservation Society. In reality, it was less about preservation and more about gossip, disguised as a concern for zoning laws and historical paint colors. But it was a ritual. It was a performance. And tonight, I needed the performance more than ever. I needed to prove to these women, and perhaps to myself, that the Vance household was still a pillar of stability, despite the phantom war being waged upstairs for the last 3 days. Lily had barely spoken to me since the steak incident. She drifted through the house like a ghost, her eyes red-rimmed, carrying an aura of tragic martyrdom. She had left the house 2 hours ago without a word, taking the Mercedes. I told the ladies she was at the library, researching for her master's degree. It was a lie. Of course, Lily was not in a master's program. But in Greenwich, lies are the mortar that holds the bricks of our reputation together. The hydrangeas this year are simply tragic, Beatrice exclaimed, balancing a china plate on her knee. Beatrice was the president of the society, a woman who wore pearls to the grocery store and regarded dust as a personal insult. The acidity in the soil is all wrong. Yours, however, Naomi, are spectacular. Who is your landscaper? I use green leaf, I said, pouring tea from the silver service. My hand was steady, a testament to decades of practice. But I think the secret is just patience. Patience, Beatrice mused, taking a tiny bite of a cucumber sandwich, a virtue in short supply these days. Speaking of which, how is that lovely daughter of yours? We missed her at the gala last month. My stomach tightened. She is wonderful. She is very focused on her studies right now. She is actually at the library tonight. Such a diligent girl. Another woman, Susan, chimed in. You are lucky. Naomi, my son is currently backpacking through Peru, trying to find himself. I told him he could find himself at a law firm in Manhattan, but he would not listen. The room filled with polite, tinkling laughter. I joined in, the sound hollow in my own ears. I looked around at my beautiful living room, the Persian rugs, the oil paintings, the mahogany bookshelves. It was a perfect stage set. And then the front door opened. It was not a quiet opening. It was a heavy thud, followed by the sound of wind and rain rushing into the foyer. The laughter in the living room died instantly. Every head turned toward the archway. Mom, we are home. It was Lily's voice, but it was too loud, too cheerful, carrying a manic edge that sliced through the polite atmosphere of the tea party. I froze, the teapot suspended in midair. Lily appeared in the archway. She was soaking wet. Her hair was plastered to her skull, and her mascara was running down her cheeks. But she was beaming. She looked triumphant, like a hunter returning with a prize kill, and behind her stood the prize. He was not what I expected. When Lily had described a 45-year-old entrepreneur, I had pictured a man in a suit, perhaps a bit weathered, perhaps a bit arrogant, but polished, a man who belonged in a boardroom, or at least a country club. The man standing on my foyer rug, dripping muddy water onto the hardwood, looked like he belonged in a police lineup. He was shorter than me, with a paunch that strained against a button-down shirt that was 2 sizes too tight and unbuttoned halfway down his chest, revealing a thicket of graying hair. He wore a leather jacket that looked synthetic, the kind that squeaks when you move. His face was flushed, his skin possessing the rough, open-pored texture of someone who spent too much time in tanning beds or bars. His hair was dyed a jet black that did not occur in nature, slicked back with enough gel to withstand a hurricane. Ladies, Lily announced, gesturing to him with a flourish. I want you to meet someone. This is Mark. The silence in the room was absolute. It was a physical weight, crushing the air out of my lungs. Beatrice's cucumber sandwich hovered halfway to her mouth. Susan's eyes were wide circles of shock. Mark stepped forward. He did not seem embarrassed to be interrupting a formal gathering. He did not seem ashamed of his wet, disheveled appearance. He strode into the room with a swagger that was almost comical in its unearned confidence. Hello, Mark said. His voice was gravelly, like stones grinding together. He scanned the room, his eyes lingering on the expensive furniture, the silver tea service, and finally, the women. It was not a respectful look. It was an appraisal. Nice place. Very Xiao Jing Haoling. 2 dièse est supérieur à antique. I set the teapot down with a rattle. I stood up, my legs feeling like lead. Lily, I said, my voice barely a whisper. We are in the middle of a meeting. Oh, do not mind us, Lily said, grabbing Mark's arm and clinging to it. Mark just needed to get out of the rain. His car, Xiao Jing Hao Ling 2 hash, is greater than well. The convertible top got stuck. Can you believe it? So I told him to come in and dry off. She looked at me, her eyes flashing with a challenge. Kick him out. Her eyes said, I dare you. Kick him out in front of your friends and make a scene. I looked at Mark. He was smiling at me. It was a smile that did not reach his eyes. It was a smirk, a predator's smirk. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew I was trapped by my own social etiquette. Pleased to meet you, Mark said, extending a hand toward Beatrice. His fingernails were bitten down to the quick, and there was a smudge of dirt on his thumb. Beatrice stared at the hand as if it were a dead fish. She did not take it. Charmed, she said icily, clutching her pearls. Mark did not flinch. He just laughed. A wet, wheezing sound. Classy. I like it. He walked past me, so close I could smell him. He smelled of stale tobacco, cheap musk cologne, and something damp and sour, like mildew. He walked straight to the buffet table where I had arranged a spread of imported cheeses, figs, and prosciutto. Starving, he muttered. He reached out and picked up a piece of prosciutto with his bare fingers. He did not use the silver tongs lying 2 inches away. He shoved the meat into his mouth, chewed with his mouth open, and then licked his fingers. Mark, Lily giggled, following him like a puppy. Use a plate. Silly, plates are for politicians. Mark winked at her. He grabbed a handful of crackers and a wedge of brie, effectively contaminating the entire cheese board. I felt a wave of nausea rise in my throat. This was a violation. It was not just bad manners. It was a territorial pissing contest. He was marking his territory. He was showing me that he could walk into my sanctuary, soil it, and there was nothing I could do about it. Lily, I said, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. Perhaps you should take your guest to the kitchen. We are discussing business. Oh, I love business, Mark said, turning around with his mouth full of cracker crumbs. What kind of business? Real estate? I dabble in real estate. Had a big deal in Florida last year. Huge. Fell through because of the zoning board. Bunch of bureaucrats. He looked at Beatrice. You look like a woman who knows about zoning. You on the board? Beatrice stood up. Her face was pale. I believe it is time for us to leave. Naomi, the weather is turning, and I do not like to drive in the storm. No, please, I pleaded, stepping forward. Stay. We have not discussed the fundraising gala. I think we have discussed enough, Beatrice said, her eyes darting to Mark, who was now inspecting a Fabergé egg on the mantelpiece. Tapping on the glass with a greasy finger, the other women stood up in unison, a flock of birds sensing danger. They gathered their purses, murmuring quiet apologies, avoiding eye contact with me. They were fleeing the contagion of lower-class vulgarity that had just invaded my living room. I followed them to the door, apologizing profusely, my face burning with humiliation. I closed the door behind the last guest and leaned my forehead against the cool wood for a second. Breathe, Naomi, breathe. I turned around. Lily and Mark were still in the living room. Mark had made himself comfortable in David's favorite leather armchair. He had kicked off his wet shoes, and his socks, one of which had a hole in the toe, were resting on the mahogany coffee table. Lily was sitting on the arm of the chair, stroking his wet hair as if he were a war hero returning from battle. They were boring anyway, Lily said, looking at me with defiance. Mark livened things up. Get his feet off the table, I said. My voice was low. Dangerous. Mark looked at me. He did not move his feet. He picked up a crystal tumbler from the side table, My grandfather's crystal. Got anything stronger than tea? Mom? He asked. A little scotch would be nice. Takes the chill off. Mom. He called me Mom. Something inside me snapped. It was not a loud snap. It was the quiet, terrifying sound of a cable parting under too much tension. I am not your mother, I said. Walking into the room, I stopped 3 feet away from him. And you are not drinking my scotch. You are leaving. Naomi, Lily gasped. Do not be rude. Rude? I laughed. A shrill, hysterical sound. He just ate with his hands like a barbarian, insulted my guests, and put his dirty feet on a table that is worth more than his car. Get out. Now. Mark did not move. He looked at Lily. He gave a small, pathetic shrug, acting the victim. See, he said to her, his voice dropping to a theatrical whisper. I told you she would not understand. It is the class thing. Babe. She looks at me and sees trash. She does not see the man who loves you. She is a snob, Lily said, tears welling up in her eyes again. She looked at me with pure venom. You are disgusting. Mother, he is a guest. He is an intruder. I spat. He stays for dinner, Lily announced, standing up and blocking Mark with her body. Or I leave with him. Right now, I will get in that car, in the rain, and I will go wherever he goes. And you will never see me again. I looked at her. I looked at the fierce determination in her jaw. The same jaw she inherited from me. She meant it. She was so desperate to be saved, so desperate to be loved, that she would throw herself into the gutter with this man just to prove me wrong. I looked at Mark. He was watching us from the chair, a small, satisfied smile playing on his lips. He had won. He knew the pressure points. He knew that the threat of losing Lily was the one gun I could not dodge. Fine, I said. The word tasted like ash. Dinner, and then he leaves. Great, Mark said, clapping his hands together. I love a good steak. Lily said you have ribeyes. I like mine medium rare. Do not burn it. He picked up the remote control and turned on the television, flipping channels until he found a wrestling match. He turned the volume up loud. I stood there for a moment, watching the flickering light of the television reflect in his eyes. I realized then that I had made a terrible mistake. I thought I was discovering a boyfriend. I was not. I was discovering a parasite that had already attached itself to my daughter's soul and was now looking for a new host to feed on. He was not just awkward or rude. He was dangerous. I saw it in the way he relaxed, instantly, assuming ownership of the space. I saw it in the way he looked at Lily, not with love, but with the calculation of a man checking the balance of an automated teller machine. My world, my safe, curated, perfect world had just been breached. And as the wrestling crowd roared on the television, drowning out the sound of the rain, I knew that getting him out would require more than just words. It would require a war. Mark finally left at 10 o'clock at night. He did not leave quietly. He revved the engine of his rusted convertible in the driveway, the sound tearing through the suburban silence like a chainsaw. Before peeling out onto the wet asphalt, he left behind a half-eaten ribeye steak, a grease stain on the linen napkin, and a smell in my dining room that hovered somewhere between cheap cologne and decay. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the pile of dirty dishes. My hands were trembling. I ran the hot water until steam rose from the sink, scalding my skin, but I did not pull away. I needed to feel clean. I needed to scrub the memory of his mouth, chewing with the lips open from my mind. Lily was sitting at the kitchen island. She was not helping. She was scrolling through her phone, a small, dreamy smile playing on her lips. She looked like a teenager who had just been kissed at prom, not a 23-year-old woman who had just subjected her mother to a social execution. "He liked the steak," Lily said softly, breaking the silence. "He said you are a good cook, even if you are a bit uptight." I turned off the faucet. The water pipes groaned. I gripped the edge of the sink, my knuckles turning white. "Uptight?" I repeated, keeping my back to her. "He insulted my guests. He ate like an animal. He treated this house like a frat house. He was just being himself," Lily protested, her voice taking on that familiar whine. "You are just judging him because he is poor. You are a classist." "Mother, it is ugly." I turned around slowly to face her. "I am judging him because he is rude, Lily, and because he is a married man who is manipulating you." Lily rolled her eyes. She picked up a grape from the fruit bowl and tossed it into her mouth. "He is not married in his heart, and that is actually what we need to talk about. The legal stuff." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. Here it comes. "The pivot? What legal stuff?" I asked. Lily sat up straighter. She put the phone down. She took a deep breath, composing herself like an actress preparing for a monologue. "Mark and I had a long talk while you were pouting in the kitchen," she said. "He wants to be with me. He wants to marry me. But he cannot move forward until he severs the legal ties with that which he calls a wife. The divorce is going to be messy. She is going to fight him for every penny." "That sounds like his problem," I said coldly. "It is our problem," Lily corrected, "because as long as he is tied to her, he cannot access his assets. She has frozen everything. He has millions in equity." "Mom, but it is all locked up in litigation. He needs a bridge loan, just to hire the best shark of a lawyer in New York to expedite the process." I stared at her. I knew exactly where this road ended. "How much?" I asked. Lily hesitated. She licked her lips. $50,000. The number hung in the air between us. Absurd and terrifying. $50,000. I repeated slowly. "You want me to give a strange man $50,000? "It is not a gift," Lily cried, jumping off the stool. "It is a loan. He will pay you back with interest as soon as the settlement goes through, probably in 3 months. He even said he would sign a promissory note. He is a businessman." "Mom, he honors his debts?" I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "A businessman?" "Lily, he drives a car held together by duct tape. He has no job. He has no home. He is grifting you. He is using you to get to me. Stop calling him a grifter," she screamed. Her face turned a violent shade of red. "You do not know him. You do not know his heart. He is a victim of a vindictive woman. Just like I am a victim of a controlling mother. I am controlling?" I walked toward her, my voice rising for the first time. "I have given you everything. A debt-free education you threw away, a car, this house, and now you want me to fund the divorce of your boyfriend? No, absolutely not. Not one penny." Lily looked at me with a look of pure, unadulterated loathing. It was as if a mask had slipped, revealing something feral underneath. "You have the money?" she hissed. "I know you do. Dad's life insurance, the investment accounts. It is sitting there, rotting in the bank, while you pretend to be poor. You are hoarding it. You are hoarding happiness. That money is for my retirement," I said, my voice shaking. It is for emergencies. It is to ensure I do not become a burden to you when I am old. You are already a burden, Lily shouted. You are an emotional burden. You suffocate me. She began to pace the kitchen, her movements jerky and erratic. She ran her hands through her hair. Mark needs this, she muttered, almost to herself. If he does not get the lawyer by Friday, she wins. She takes everything. He will be ruined, and we will never be able to start our life. She stopped pacing and looked at me. Her eyes were wide, dark pools of entitlement. Give me the money. Mom, please, just write the check. No, I said firmly. It is my money anyway. She shrieked. The words stopped me cold. Excuse me? It is. She stepped closer, invading my space. You are old. You are going to die eventually. And when you do, who gets it all? Me. It is my inheritance. I am the only heir. So why do I have to wait until you are dead to enjoy my life? Why can I not have my share now? When I actually need it? I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked at the daughter I had raised, the girl I had rocked to sleep, the girl I had protected from every scrape and bruise. I did not see her anymore. I saw a stranger who had calculated the value of my death. Is that what you think? I whispered. You are waiting for me to die? I am waiting for you to be useful. She spat. She grabbed the nearest object on the counter. It was a blue ceramic vase. A piece of pottery David and I had bought on our honeymoon in Santorini 25 years ago. It was not expensive, but it held the memory of the sun and the sea and a time when I was loved. Lily, put that down, I warned. Give me the money. She screamed, raising the vase above her head. No, she threw it. She did not throw it at me, but she threw it with all her strength against the floor at my feet. The sound of the ceramic shattering was explosive. Shards of blue pottery flew across the kitchen, skittering across the tile like shrapnel. A large, jagged piece sliced across my ankle. I cried out in pain, looking down to see a thin line of blood welling up on my skin. Lily stood there, panting, her chest heaving. She looked down at the broken vase, then at the blood on my ankle. For a second, I thought I saw a flicker of regret. I thought she would rush forward, apologize, help me, but she did not move. Her expression hardened. Look what you made me do, she said coldly. I stared at her in horror. Look what you made me do. The anthem of the abuser. Go to your room, I said. My voice was deadly quiet. I did not recognize it. I am not a child. Go to your room, I screamed, the sound tearing from my throat, raw and animalistic. Get out of my sight. Lily recoiled. She had never heard me scream like that. She looked at me with a mixture of fear and disgust, then turned and ran out of the kitchen. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, heavy and fast. I stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the wreckage of my memories. My ankle throbbed. The blood trickled down into my sock. I sank to the floor, careful to avoid the sharp edges of the blue ceramic. I pulled my knees to my chest. I wanted to cry, but I could not. The tears would not come. I was past sadness. I was in a place of shock, a gray, numb landscape where nothing made sense. My daughter had just told me she wished I was dead so she could have my money. She had thrown a weapon at me. She had drawn blood, and the terrified realization washed over me. This is not just a phase. This is a takeover. I looked at the shards on the floor. They looked like a puzzle that could never be put back together. Just like my family, I needed to clean this up. I needed to sweep the floor. I needed to bandage my ankle. but I could not move. I stayed there on the cold tile, listening to the silence of the house, and for the first time in my life, I felt unsafe behind my own locked doors. The enemy was not outside in a rusted car. The enemy was upstairs, sleeping in the bedroom with the pink wallpaper, dreaming of my funeral. I reached for my phone in my pocket. My fingers hovered over the screen. I thought about calling the police. I thought about calling a doctor. But shame is a powerful gag. How could I tell anyone that my golden child had become a monster? Instead, I opened my banking application. I checked my balance. The numbers stared back at me, secure and substantial. $50,000 was a drop in the bucket. I could afford it. Maybe I should just pay him. A weak, treacherous voice whispered in my head, pay him to go away. Pay him to give me my daughter back. But I looked at the blood on my ankle again. No, money would not make him go away. Money was blood in the water. If I gave a shark a taste, he would eat the whole boat. I stood up, wincing as weight put pressure on my cut. I grabbed the broom. I swept the blue shards into a dustpan. I threw them in the trash. I did not try to glue them back together. I walked to the front door and engaged the deadbolt. Then I walked to the back door and checked the lock. Finally, I went to my bedroom. I closed the door. I locked it. I pushed a heavy armchair in front of the handle. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening for footsteps in the hallway. I was a prisoner in my own home, guarding a fortune that had become a curse. And as sleep refused to come, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. The girl who threw that vase was not Lily. Lily was gone, and I had to figure out how to survive the stranger who had taken her place. 3 days had passed since the vase shattered against the kitchen tiles. 3 days of a silence so thick and oppressive it felt like walking through water. I had retreated into the routine of a ghost in my own home. I woke up. I made coffee. I locked myself in the study, and I avoided the gaze of the young woman who lived down the hall. Lily and I were no longer mother and daughter. We were inmates in the same luxury prison. She did not apologize for the cut on my ankle, which had now turned into a bruised, scabbing line above my heel. Instead, she doubled down on her martyrdom. She slammed doors. She left dishes in the sink. She played music loudly at 2 a.m. She was trying to break me. She was trying to make my life so unbearable that writing a check for $50,000 would seem like a cheap price for peace. It was Friday afternoon when the front door opened. I was in the sunroom, repotting an orchid, my hands buried in cool, dark moss. I heard the heavy tread of boots on the hardwood floor. I knew that sound. It was not Lily's light step. It was him. I froze. I had not given permission for him to enter. The sheer audacity of it made my blood boil. But a wave of exhaustion followed immediately after. I was too tired to scream. I was too tired to stand in the foyer and demand he leave, only to have Lily scream that I was ruining her life. I stayed in the sunroom, hidden behind a large fiddle-leaf fig tree. I listened. Just put the bags on the counter. Babe. Mark's voice boomed. It was rough, entitled, the voice of a man who owned the place. I am so glad you came. Lily's voice replied, breathless and eager. Mom is hiding in the garden or something. We have the place to ourselves for a bit. Good. Mark grunted. I need a drink. That drive was hell. The fan belt is screeching again. Do not worry, Lily said soothingly. Once we get the money, you can get a new car, a Porsche. You deserve it. I squeezed the moss in my hand until water dripped through my fingers. Once we get the money, they were speaking of my savings as if it were a foregone conclusion. A harvest they were just waiting to reap. Yeah. Well, you better work on her. Mark said, my lawyer is getting impatient. If I do not have the retainer by Monday, Sarah wins. She takes the house in the Hamptons. She takes the boat. I am trying. Mark, she is just so stubborn. But I will wear her down. I promise. You better, he said. The affection in his voice evaporated, replaced by a cold threat. Go get me a beer, and maybe make me a sandwich. I have not eaten since breakfast. Okay, be right back. I heard Lily's footsteps trotting toward the kitchen. Then, silence. Mark did not follow her. I heard him walk into the formal living room, which was adjacent to the sunroom. The only thing separating us was a wall of French doors with sheer curtains. If I moved, he would see my shadow. So I stood perfectly still, a statue of rage covered in garden soil. I heard the distinct sound of a cell phone being unlocked. Then, a ringtone. It rang twice before someone picked up. Hey, baby doll, Mark said. My breath caught in my throat. The voice was different. It was not the gravelly growl he used with Lily. It was smooth. It was sweet. It was the voice of a man trying to charm a woman he actually liked. Yeah, I am at the automated teller machine right now. Mark chuckled. The automated teller machine. I leaned closer to the glass, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. No, do not worry about the credit card bill, Mark continued, his voice dripping with honey. I told you, I got this. I found a golden goose in Greenwich. Yeah, a total airhead. She is obsessed with me. It is honestly kind of pathetic. He laughed. It was a cruel, low sound that made my skin crawl. I know, he said. I miss you too, Sarah. But listen, the payout is coming. The mother is a tough nut, a real tightwad. But the daughter, she is putty. She would sell her kidneys if I asked her to. I have her convinced that you are some sort of monster who froze my assets. He paused, listening to the person on the other end. Sarah, his wife, the woman Lily had described as a vindictive witch who was holding him hostage. I know, baby. Mark cooed. I know you are not a monster. You are my queen. And queens deserve diamonds. I was looking at that necklace you wanted. The Cartier one? Yeah. Once the wire transfer hits on Monday, I am walking straight into the boutique. Consider it an early anniversary present. I felt the room spin. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. It was all a lie. There was no divorce. There was no frozen bank account. There was no suffering husband sleeping in a car. Mark and Sarah were not enemies. They were partners. They were a team of grifters. And my daughter was their Mark. Sarah was not the villain. She was the accomplice, waiting in the wings for her new jewelry. Bought with the money her husband was conning out of a naive 23-year-old girl. Yeah, I love you too, Mark said. I have to go. The little cash dispenser is coming back with my sandwich. I will call you tonight when I get back to the motel. Kiss the kids for me. Kiss the kids. He had children. The call ended. I heard the rustle of fabric as he likely shoved the phone back into his pocket. Here is your beer. Handsome, Lily's voice chirped from the hallway. Thanks, babe, Mark said, his voice instantly switching back to the rough, weary tone of the tortured soul. A god. You are an angel. I do not know what I would do without you. We will get through this, Lily whispered. I love you. I love you too. He lied. I slid down to the floor of the sunroom, burying my face in my dirty hands. I wanted to vomit. The betrayal was so absolute, so visceral, that it felt like I had swallowed poison. My daughter was not just being used, she was being mocked. She was destroying her relationship with her mother, ruining her future, and debasing herself for a man who called her a cash dispenser to his wife. A man who had children he had never mentioned. A man who was playing a game so sick it defied belief. I sat there for a long time, listening to them eat in the next room. I heard Mark chew. I heard Lily giggle. I heard the sounds of a domestic life that was built entirely on a foundation of sewage. For the first time in 4 years, since the day David died, the fog of grief and hesitation lifted from my mind. The fear of loneliness vanished. The guilt of being a strict mother evaporated. I looked at my hands. They were covered in dirt. I looked at the orchid I had been repotting. It was delicate, fragile, needing constant care to survive. Lily was the orchid. I had kept her in a greenhouse for too long. I had watered her with money and sheltered her from the wind. And because of that, she had grown weak. She had no roots. She would fall for the first pest that landed on her leaves. I stood up. I wiped my hands on my apron. I was done being the victim. I was done being the scared widow who walked on eggshells to keep the peace. Mark had made a fatal mistake. He had underestimated me. He saw a lonely old woman in a big house. He did not see the woman who had managed the finances of a successful architectural firm for 20 years. He did not see the mother who would burn the world down to save her child, even if she had to burn the child a little bit to do it. I did not storm into the living room. I did not scream. I did not confront them. Not yet. If I walked in there now and told Lily what I heard, she would not believe me. She was too deep in the cult of Mark. She would think I was lying. She would think I was making it up to sabotage her happiness. Mark would spin it. He would say he was talking to his sister, or his lawyer, or that I was hallucinating. No, words were useless now. I needed ammunition. I needed cold, hard, irrefutable evidence. I slipped out the side door of the sunroom into the backyard. The air was cool and crisp. I walked around the house to the driveway where Mark's rusted convertible was parked. I looked at the license plate. It was covered in mud, but legible. I pulled out my phone. My hands were steady now. I took a picture of the plate. I took a picture of the vehicle identification number on the dashboard. Then, I opened the browser on my phone and searched for a name I had not spoken in years. Anthony DeLuca. He was a private investigator my husband had used for background checks on employees. He was expensive. He was discreet, and he was ruthless. I dialed the number. DeLuca Investigations. A gruff voice answered. Anthony, I said. My voice sounded different to my own ears. It was deeper, stronger. This is Naomi Vance, David's wife. There was a pause. Naomi, I am sorry about David. It has been a while. What can I do for you? I need you to find someone, I said, staring at the silhouette of Mark through the living room window. He was leaning back, his feet on my coffee table, drinking my beer. His name is Mark. I have a license plate and a physical description. I need to know everything. Who he is, where he lives, who his wife is, and what crimes he has committed. And Anthony, yeah? I want the wife's phone number, and I want to know if she is in on the con, or if she is a victim too. I can do that. Anthony said, it will cost you. I do not care about the cost. I said, just get me the dirt, all of it. I hung up the phone. I stood in the driveway, looking at my house. It looked different now. It was no longer a sanctuary. It was a battlefield. I turned and walked back toward the side door. I would go back inside. I would smile. I would offer Mark another beer. I would play the part of the defeated, wavering mother. I would let them think they were winning. I would let them think the check was coming, because when the trap snapped shut, I wanted Mark to be so comfortable, so arrogant, that he would not even see the blade coming until it severed his head from his neck. I wiped the last streak of dirt from my cheek. I took a deep breath. The mourning widow was dead. The matriarch had returned. The envelope from Anthony DeLuca arrived via courier at 8 in the morning on Saturday. It was a manila packet that felt heavier than its physical weight warranted. It felt like I was holding a brick of lead. I took it into my study and locked the door, my hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of impending combat. I sat at my mahogany desk and slit the envelope open with a silver letter opener. The contents spilled out across the leather blotter. Photographs, bank statements, a printed dossier. I picked up the first photograph. It was taken 3 days ago. It showed Mark standing outside a boutique in Manhattan. He was not wearing the cheap leather jacket he wore to my house. He was wearing a tailored navy suit. His arm was wrapped around a woman, Sarah. She was blonde, sharp, angled, and laughing. She was holding a shopping bag from Cartier. I picked up the second photograph. Mark and Sarah sitting at an outdoor cafe, sharing a bottle of wine that I knew cost $300. They looked like partners in crime. They looked happy. I read the dossier. Mark was not an entrepreneur. He was a career con artist with a rap sheet that spanned 3 states: fraud, embezzlement, identity theft, and Sarah, she was not his victim. She was his legal wife of 20 years and his accomplice. They had run this scam before in Florida and Arizona. The pattern was always the same: find a wealthy, insecure target, isolate them, drain them, discard them, and now the target was my daughter. I felt a cold rage settle in my chest, displacing the anxiety. It was a clarifying sensation. I had the truth in my hands. I had the antidote to the poison Mark had poured into Lily's ear. I organized the papers. I needed to be strategic. I could not just scream at her. I had to deprogram her. I walked out of the study and found Lily in the kitchen. She was making a smoothie, the blender roaring, drowning out the sound of the world. She wore headphones, swaying to music I could not hear. She looked so young, so foolish, and so devastatingly vulnerable. I tapped her on the shoulder. She jumped, pulling the headphones down around her neck. Her eyes narrowed instantly when she saw me. "What?" she asked. "I am making breakfast. Do you have a problem with the noise?" "Turn it off," I said. My voice was calm. "Steady. We need to talk." "In the living room." "Now. I am busy," she snapped. Turning back to the blender, I reached out and unplugged the machine. The silence that followed was jarring. It was not a request. "Lily," I said, "sit down." Something in my demeanor, perhaps the lack of pleading, perhaps the cold authority, made her pause. She sighed, rolling her eyes with theatrical exhaustion, and marched into the living room. She threw herself onto the sofa, crossing her arms over her chest. "Make it quick," she said. "Mark is coming over at noon to pick up the check. I assume you have come to your senses about the loan." I sat down opposite her. I placed the manila folder on the coffee table between us. "There is no check," I said, "and Mark is not getting a penny." Lily's face darkened. "We are not doing this again. If you do not help us, I am leaving. I mean it." "Mom," Look at the folder. I said, I do not want to see your stupid budgets. She spat. It is not a budget. I said, it is the truth. Open it. She hesitated, then reached forward and flipped the folder open. Her eyes scanned the first photograph. She frowned. She picked it up. What is this? She asked. That was taken 3 days ago. I explained. While he was supposedly shivering in his car, he was in Manhattan buying jewelry for his wife. Lily stared at the photo. Her face went blank. This is Photoshop. It is not Photoshop. I said, keep looking. She flipped through the rest. The bank statements showing joint accounts with healthy balances. The criminal record. The mugshot from an arrest in Tampa 5 years ago. He is a con man. Lily? I said, my voice softening, trying to reach the girl beneath the armor. He and Sarah are partners. They are not divorcing. They are using you. He called you a cash dispenser on the phone yesterday. I heard him. I expected tears. I expected shock. I expected her to crumble so I could hold her and tell her it would be okay. But I had underestimated the depth of the infection. Lily stood up. She did not look at the photos anymore. She looked at me, and her eyes were burning with a hatred so intense it made me recoil. You are sick, she whispered. What? I blinked. You are actually sick, she screamed, throwing the photos at me. They fluttered through the air like dead leaves. You hired someone to stalk him? You hired someone to fake these pictures? How much did you pay for this? How much did you spend to ruin my happiness? Lily, look at the evidence, I pleaded, standing up. It is real. Anthony DeLuca found it. You remember Mr. DeLuca. Dad used him for the firm. I do not care, she shrieked. She was pacing now, pulling at her hair. You are obsessed. You are jealous. Mark told me you would do this. He told me you would try to frame him. He said you were a narcissist who could not stand to let me go. And he was right. He is lying to you, I shouted back. He has children. Lily, 3 children. I know, she yelled. The room went silent. You, Saoyuting Holing, 2 hashes greater than you know. I stammered. Yes. He told me. Lily lied. I could see it in her eyes. She was improvising, stitching together a reality that would allow her to keep her delusion alive. He told me about his kids. He protects them from that witch of a wife. And that photo? That is probably his sister. Or maybe he had to meet Sarah to discuss custody, and you just took it out of context. He was buying her diamonds. Maybe it was a bribe to get her to sign the papers. Lily screamed. Her logic was twisting into pretzels to defend him. You do not know anything. You just want him to be bad because you are miserable and alone. She advanced on me, her finger pointing in my face. You invaded his privacy. You invaded my privacy. This is illegal. Mother, this is harassment. I felt a profound sense of vertigo. I was showing her a fire, and she was screaming that it was water. The gaslighting Mark had performed on her was absolute. He had inoculated her against the truth. Lily, please, I said, my voice cracking. I am trying to save you. He is going to take the money and leave you. No, she said. Her voice dropped to a low, cold register. He loves me, and I am going to prove it to you. She took a deep breath. She straightened her spine. The hysterical girl vanished, replaced by someone cold and calculating. Mark's creature. I have an ultimatum, she said. I stared at her. An ultimatum? Yes, she said. Mark and I discussed this possibility. We knew you would try to sabotage us. So, here is the deal. You are clearly not mentally stable. You are spending thousands on private investigators. You are paranoid. You are delusional. You are not fit to manage this estate. My mouth fell open. Excuse me? I want you to sign the house over to me, she said. The words hung in the air, grotesque and absurd. You want me, Saoyuting Haoling, 2 hashes greater than to give you my house? It is for your own protection, she said, parroting words that had clearly been fed to her. Put the deed in my name. I will let you live here. Of course, I am not a monster, but I need to control the assets to make sure you do not waste my inheritance on vendettas against my boyfriend. You are insane, I whispered. Sign the house over, she repeated, and give Mark the $50,000 for the lawyer. Do that, and we can be a family. I will forgive this. Saoyuting Haoling, Coxie, stunned. And if I refuse? Lily looked at me. Her eyes were dry. There was no love in them, only leverage. If you refuse, she said, I will pack my bags today. I will leave with Mark. We will go to the courthouse, get married, and disappear. You will never see me again. You will never see your grandchildren. You will die in this big, empty house, and no one will find you for weeks. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. She knew my greatest fear, dying alone. She was weaponizing her own existence against me. You would do that? I asked, tears finally spilling over. You would abandon your mother for a criminal? He is my family now, she said coldly. You are just the woman who pays the bills. And if you stop paying, you are of no use to me. I looked at her. I really looked at her. The daughter I loved was gone. She was buried under layers of manipulation and greed. The person standing before me was a stranger who wanted to steal everything David and I had built. If I said no, she would leave. She would vanish with Mark, and he would drain her dry, abuse her, and dump her in a ditch somewhere. I would lose her completely. If I fought her now, I lost. I needed time. I needed to get close to the enemy. I needed to bring Mark into the light where I could slaughter him. I wiped my tears. I took a deep, shuddering breath. I let my shoulders slump. I let the defeat wash over my face. I needed to look broken. I needed to look like the old, weak woman they thought I was. Okay, I whispered. Lily blinked. She had not expected me to fold so quickly. Okay, you are right, I said, my voice trembling. I am. Saoyuting Haoling, 2 hashes greater than I am scared. I miss your father. Maybe I am not thinking clearly. I looked up at her, forcing a look of pathetic desperation. I do not want to be alone. Lily, please do not leave me. A smirk touched the corner of Lily's mouth. Victory, I knew you would be reasonable, she said. So, you will sign the papers? Yes, I said, but Saoyuting Haoling, 2 hashes greater than it is Saturday. The lawyers are closed. We have to wait until Monday to draft the deed transfer. Monday, she said, calculating. Okay, Monday is fine. And the money? I asked. For Mark? You can write a check today, she said. I will, I said. Invite him over. For dinner? I want to. Saoyuting Haoling, 2 hash is greater than I want to apologize. I want to make things right. We can celebrate a new beginning. Lily beamed. It was a terrifying sight. Oh, Mom, I knew you loved me. This is going to be amazing. Mark will be so happy. He will forgive you. I know he will. She rushed over and hugged me. Her body was warm, but her embrace felt like a shackle. "I will go call him," she squealed. She ran out of the room, trampling on the photos of Mark's infidelity that lay scattered on the rug. I sat there in the silence. The tragedy was complete. My daughter was gone. She had just blackmailed me with my own death. I looked down at the mugshot of Mark lying by my foot. His eyes seemed to mock me. "You think you won?" I thought, a cold, hard resolve solidifying in my gut. "You think you broke me." I stood up. I walked to the fireplace. I picked up the photos, one by one, and threw them into the cold grate. I struck a match. I watched Mark's smiling face curl and blacken in the flame. "Come to dinner." "Mark," I whispered to the fire, "come into my house. Sign the papers. Think you have won." I was not going to sign the house over. I was going to destroy him, and if I had to break my daughter's heart to save her life, then so be it. The war had just begun. Sunday morning broke with a deceptive brightness. The sky was a piercing, innocent blue, the kind that usually heralded church bells and brunch reservations in Greenwich. Inside my house, the atmosphere had shifted from a funeral parlor to a carnival. Lily was humming. She was actually humming as she made coffee in the kitchen, her movements light and airy. She believed she had won. She believed that the monster, her mother, had finally been slain by the sword of her ultimatum. I stood in the doorway, dressed in my charcoal wool coat, clutching my purse with white-knuckled intensity. I told her I was going to meet with our family attorney, Mr. Henderson, to draft the transfer of the deed. "Make sure he spells my name right," Lily said, not looking up from her phone. "Le, and ask him if we can expedite the filing. Mark wants to ensure the assets are secure before the market fluctuates." "I will take care of everything," I said. My voice was soft, submissive. It was the voice she wanted to hear. "I just want you to be happy. Honey, I know." "Mom," she said, finally bestowing a brief, dismissive smile upon me. "You are doing the right thing." Finally, I walked out of the house, got into my Audi, and backed out of the driveway. I did not drive to Mr. Henderson's office. Mr. Henderson was currently enjoying a golf weekend in Martha's Vineyard and had no idea that my daughter was attempting a hostile takeover of his client's estate. Instead, I drove south. I merged onto the interstate, leaving the manicured hedges of Connecticut behind. I followed the global positioning system coordinates Anthony DeLuca had included in the dossier. My destination was not a law office. It was a garden apartment complex in Yonkers, a place where the siding was peeling and the balconies were crowded with rusted bicycles and drying laundry. This was where the entrepreneur lived, or rather, this was where his wife lived. My heart beat a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. I was terrified. I was a 52-year-old widow who had never been in a fist fight, never confronted a criminal. I never stepped outside the invisible electric fence of my social class. But as I gripped the leather steering wheel, I realized that fear was a luxury I could no longer afford. I was not just fighting for a house. I was fighting for my daughter's soul. If I let Mark win, Lily would not just be poor. She would be him. She would be hollowed out, filled with his venom, and turned into a predator. I parked the car in a visitor spot marked by a faded yellow line. I checked my reflection in the rear-view mirror. I applied a fresh coat of lipstick. It was a shade called Red Velvet, dark and serious. I looked like a woman who had come to buy the building, not a woman who was about to beg for help. I walked up to Unit 4B. I could hear the sound of a television blaring from inside. I raised my hand and knocked. 3 sharp, authoritative raps. The door opened after a long minute. The woman standing there was the woman from the photographs. Sarah. She was in her late 40s, wearing a silk robe that had seen better days, and holding a lit cigarette. She was striking in a hard, angular way. Her blonde hair was dyed a shade too bright, and her eyes were lined with heavy black makeup that made her look perpetually exhausted. She looked me up and down, taking in the expensive coat, the pearls, the designer bag. She took a drag of her cigarette and blew the smoke over my shoulder. "We do not want any," she said, her voice raspy. "Whatever you are selling, we are not buying. And if you are from the collection agency, Mark is not home." She started to close the door. "I am not a debt collector," I said, putting my hand on the door frame. "I am Naomi Vance. Mark is currently sleeping with my daughter, Sarah froze. She looked at my hand on the door, then up at my face. A slow, cynical smile spread across her lips. It was not a smile of surprise. It was a smile of recognition. "Ah," she said, "the Greenwich goose." "Excuse me? That is what he calls you," she said, opening the door wider. "The goose with the golden eggs." "Well, come in, Mistress Vance. You might as well see where your money is going." I stepped inside. The apartment smelled of stale smoke and expensive perfume, a cloying mixture that made my stomach turn. The living room was cluttered but filled with incongruous items. A massive flat-screen television, a pile of Louis Vuitton boxes in the corner, a half-eaten pizza on a coffee table that looked like it had been salvaged from a dumpster. Sarah swept a pile of magazines off the sofa. "Sit down. Can I get you a drink? I have vodka or tap water." "I am fine," I said, remaining standing. I wanted to keep the high ground. "You know about the scam, honey. I wrote the script," Sarah said. She sat down in an armchair and crossed her legs. "Mark is the face. I am the brains. Although, I have to admit, he is getting sloppy. He usually does not let the marks find me this quickly." "He did not," I said. "I hired a private investigator." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Impressive. Most of them are too busy crying or writing checks to think straight. So, what do you want? You want me to tell him to back off? It will cost you." "Mark has high overhead." I looked at her. I saw the hardness in her eyes. But I also saw something else. Boredom. Resentment. She was a partner. Yes. But she was also a woman who was tired of managing a man-child. "I do not want him to back off," I said. "I want to destroy him." Sarah laughed. It was a dry, hacking sound. "Get in line. Mark is a cockroach. You can step on him, but he always scuttles away." "Not this time," I said. "He has crossed a line. He is trying to take my house. He has brainwashed my daughter to the point where she threatened to abandon me if I did not sign the deed over to her. He is not just stealing money, Sarah, he is stealing my child." Sarah took another drag of her cigarette. Her expression did not change. "And why should I care? Your daughter is a grown woman. If she is stupid enough to fall for Mark's tortured soul routine, that is on her. Because you are going to help me," I said. "Why would I do that?" "Because if you do not," I said, reaching into my bag and pulling out the dossier, "I will give this to the district attorney. I have evidence of wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. I know about the Arizona job. I know about the elderly couple in Boca Raton. If I go to the police, you both go to prison for 20 years. Sarah stared at the dossier. For the first time, her composure slipped. She flicked some ash onto the carpet. "You are bluffing," she said. "If you go to the police, your daughter gets dragged through the mud. She is an accessory now. Is she not? Trying to extort you?" "My daughter is a victim," I said firmly. "She is under coercive control. But you? You are the architect. I am willing to burn my own house down to get the rats out." "Sarah, are you willing to go to prison for a man who is currently promising my daughter he is going to divorce you?" Sarah fell silent. She looked at the smoke curling from her cigarette. "He told her that?" she asked quietly. "He told her you are a monster." I said, "He told her he hates you. He told her he is only with you because you froze his assets. And yesterday, I heard him on the phone with you, promising you diamonds. He is playing both of us. But here's the difference. I have the money. You just have a lying husband who is eventually going to get caught." I took a step closer. "I am offering you a deal, a one-time offer. Help me catch him in the act. Help me put him away. And in exchange, I leave your name out of the police report. I tell them you are a cooperating witness. You walk away. You keep the jewelry. You keep the freedom." Sarah looked at me. Her eyes narrowed. "Why would you protect me?" "Because I do not care about you," I said coldly. "You are irrelevant to me. I only care about saving my daughter. And the only way to save her is to make her see him for what he really is. I need her to see him in handcuffs. I need her to see his wife walk in and destroy him." Sarah crushed her cigarette out in an overflowing ashtray. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot. "He is cheating on me," she said. It was not a question. "Excuse me?" "Not the con," she said, turning around. Her face was hard, angry. "I know the con. The love bombing, the evil wife story. That is the script. But usually, he checks in. He comes home at night. This time, he has been staying at a motel. He has been ignoring my calls. He bought a new watch on the joint account, and I never saw it." She let out a bitter laugh. "I think he is actually sleeping with her. I think he is planning to cut me out. He is going to take your house, sell it, and run off with your little princess, leaving me here in Yonkers with the bills." I saw the opening. It was not morality that would turn her. It was jealousy. It was greed. Mark had broken the cardinal rule of their partnership. He had gotten greedy. He asked for $50,000 for a divorce lawyer. I said, "Did he tell you that?" Sarah's eyes widened. 50,000? He told me he was asking for 10. "He is cutting you out," I confirmed. "He is going to leave you with nothing." Sarah's face twisted. The mask of the cool accomplice fell away, revealing a woman scorned. It was a terrifying transformation. "That bastard," she hissed. "I taught him everything. I found him waiting tables in Atlantic City. I made him, then unmake him." I said. Sarah looked at me. A moment of silent understanding passed between us. We were two women from different worlds, bound together by the same treacherous man. "What is the plan?" she asked. "Tomorrow night," I said. "Dinner at my house. 7 o'clock. I told Lily I am signing the papers. Mark will be there. He will think he has won. He will be relaxed. He will be arrogant. And I will have the notary there." I said, "But the notary will be an undercover officer. I have a contact through the private investigator. We need you to walk in, not as the accomplice, but as the wife." "The wife?" Sarah mused. A cruel smile played on her lips. "I can do the wife. I can do the outraged, betrayed wife who just found out her husband is a bigamist fraud." "Exactly," I said. You bring the evidence of the credit card fraud. You bring the texts. You blow his cover apart in front of Lily. You make him look small. You make him look pathetic. I will make him wish he was dead. Sarah promised. Good. I said, here is the address. I wrote it down on a piece of Sarah's notepad. I placed it on the coffee table next to the pizza. 7 o'clock sharp. I said, do not be late. I would not miss it for the world. Sarah said. I walked to the door. I paused and looked back at her. One more thing. I said, if you cross me, Sarah, if you warn him, if you try to play a double game, Sao yu ting holing, ting hao tayu. I know. She interrupted. You have the dossier. You have the money. You have the power. She sighed. Do not worry. Mistress Vance, Mark is a sinking ship. I am just grabbing a life raft. I left the apartment. The air outside felt cleaner, even though I was in a parking lot in Yonkers. I got back into my car and locked the doors. I sat there for a moment, my hands shaking. I had done it. I had made a deal with the devil to catch a demon. I drove back to Greenwich in a trance. When I pulled into my driveway, the sun was setting, casting long, bloody shadows across the lawn. The house looked beautiful and serene, a lie constructed of brick and mortar. I entered the kitchen. Lily was chopping vegetables. She looked up, her face bright. Did you see the lawyer? She asked. Yes. I lied effortlessly. The lie tasted sweet on my tongue. The papers are being drawn up. They will be ready for tomorrow night. Oh, Mom, Lily squealed. She rushed over and hugged me. Thank you. You are saving us. You are literally saving his life. I hugged her back. I felt the thinness of her ribs, the frantic beating of her heart. I held her tighter than I ever had. I know. I whispered into her hair. I am doing what is best for you. You will understand soon. Mark is so excited. Lily bubbled, pulling away. He said he is going to wear his best suit. He wants to make a toast to you. That sounds lovely. I said, I will make a roast, a celebration. I walked upstairs to my bedroom. I took off my coat. I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back was not the Naomi Vance who volunteered at the Heritage Society. Her eyes were colder. Her mouth was set in a hard line. I went to my closet and pulled out a dress. It was black, severe, elegant. It was a dress for a funeral. Tomorrow night, I would serve a roast. I would pour expensive wine. I would smile at the man who wanted to rob me. And then I would signal the executioner. My internal monologue was a quiet, steady drumbeat of anticipation. Enjoy your victory lap. Mark, I thought, enjoy the feeling of the pen in your hand, because it is the last thing you will ever hold as a free man. I lay down on my bed, staring at the ceiling. I could hear Lily singing downstairs. She was singing a love song. It broke my heart to hear it, but I let the pain fuel me. The pain was good. The pain was necessary. It would keep my hand steady when I dropped the guillotine. Monday evening arrived with the precision of a funeral procession. I had set the dining room table with my grandmother's bone china and the heavy sterling silver flatware that usually only saw the light of day on Thanksgiving. The roast beef was resting on the carving board, bleeding rare juices into the trench, and the scent of rosemary and garlic filled the house. It smelled like a celebration. It smelled like a lie. I stood at the head of the table, pouring a vintage Cabernet into 3 crystal glasses. My hand was steady. My heart was a block of ice. This is really classy. Mum, Lily said, She was wearing a blue dress I had bought her for her 21st birthday. She looked hopeful, her eyes darting between me and the front door, desperate for this merger of her two worlds to succeed. Only the best for a special occasion, I said, offering her a tight, porcelain smile. The doorbell rang at exactly 7 o'clock. Lily rushed to answer it. I heard the murmur of voices, the wet smack of a kiss, and then Mark strode into the dining room. He was wearing a suit that was too shiny, a cheap polyester blend that caught the light in unflattering ways. He had slicked his hair back so severely it looked like a helmet. "Naomi," he said, nodding to me with a benevolence that made my skin crawl. "Place looks great, smells great. Glad we could finally put the drama behind us." "Good evening, Mark," I said. "Please, sit." He pulled out a chair and sat down, spreading his legs wide as if claiming ownership of the floor beneath him. Lily sat next to him, placing a possessive hand on his forearm. "And who is this?" Mark asked, gesturing to the man sitting quietly in the corner of the room. "This is Mr. Miller," I said. "He is a notary public. I thought it would be best to handle the paperwork right here, after dinner. No need to drag this out until morning." Mr. Miller, a gray-haired man in a beige suit, nodded politely but said nothing. He was staring at his briefcase. "Smart," Mark said, picking up his wine glass. "I like a woman who takes action. To new beginnings, to family," Lily added, clinking her glass against his. I watched them drink. I did not touch my wine. I watched Mark devour the roast beef, cutting huge, jagged chunks and shoving them into his mouth. He talked with his mouth full, expounding on his plans for the assets. He talked about diversifying the portfolio. He talked about turning the guest house into a home office for his consulting firm. I let him talk. I let him build his castle in the air. "So," Mark said, wiping grease from his chin with a linen napkin, "let us see these papers." I nodded to Mr. Miller. He opened his briefcase and placed a stack of documents on the table. They were thick, official-looking, and completely meaningless. "Here is the deed transfer," I said, sliding the papers toward Mark. "And here is the check, $50,000. I placed the check on top of the papers. Mark's eyes widened. He reached out, his fingers twitching slightly. He picked up the check first, staring at the zeros. "You are a generous woman, Naomi," he said, his voice dropping to a purr. "Lily was right. You just needed a little push. Sign the papers, Mark," Lily urged, her eyes shining. "Then we are free." Mark picked up the heavy fountain pen. He uncapped it. He looked at me, a smirk playing on his lips. It was the look of a predator who had finally cornered its prey. "You are making the right choice," he said. He lowered the pen to the paper. Ding dong, the doorbell rang. It was loud, insistent, echoing through the tense silence of the room. Mark froze. The pen hovered an inch above the signature line. "Who is that?" he asked, irritation flashing in his eyes. "I will get it," I said calmly. "No, into," Mark commanded. "Lily, get the door. Tell them we are busy. Tell them to go away." Lily stood up, looking confused. She walked to the foyer. I remained seated, my eyes locked on Mark. He looked nervous. His animal instinct was sensing a trap, but his greed kept him glued to the chair. I heard the front door open. "Hello?" Lily's voice drifted in from the hall. "Can I help you?" "I am here to see my husband," a woman's voice replied. It was loud, scratchy, and dripping with venom. Mark dropped the pen. It clattered against the china plate. His face drained of color, turning a sickly shade of gray. Sarah walked into the dining room. She was not wearing the bathrobe from yesterday. She was wearing a trench coat and heels. Her makeup was smeared, her hair wild. She looked like a woman on the edge of a nervous breakdown. It was a performance worthy of an Academy Award. "Mark," she screamed. Lily ran in behind her, looking terrified. "Excuse me, you cannot just walk in here. Who are you?" Sarah ignored Lily. She marched straight up to Mark, grabbed the glass of red wine from the table, and threw the contents into his face. The dark liquid splashed across his shiny suit and dripped down his white shirt like blood. "You bastard," Sarah yelled. "You told me you were in Cleveland. You told me you were closing a deal with a client," Mark sputtered, wiping wine from his eyes. He stood up, knocking his chair over. "Sarah, what?" Saoyu Tsing Haoling. 2 hash is greater than, what are you doing here? "I tracked your phone," she shrieked, pulling a stack of printed papers from her coat pocket. "I saw the credit card charges." "Cartier? Who is she?" "Mark? Who is the whore you are buying diamonds for while I am at home with the kids?" Lily let out a small, strangled gasp. "Kids?" Sarah spun around to face Lily. She looked her up and down with sneering contempt. "Oh, God, is this her? This child? This is what you are spending our retirement money on?" Saoyu Tsing Haoling. 2. I am his girlfriend." Lily stammered, her voice shaking. "He is divorcing you. He said you were a monster." Sarah threw her head back and laughed. It was a chaotic, terrifying sound. "Divorcing me? Honey, we just renewed our vows in Vegas 3 months ago. Look at the text messages." Sarah thrust the papers into Lily's chest. Lily instinctively grabbed them. I watched as her eyes scanned the pages. I knew what was on them. I had selected them myself from the dossier. Love texts, photos of them in bed together from last week, and the text from yesterday, "Found a golden goose in Greenwich. She is a cash dispenser." "No," Lily whispered. "No, this is fake." "Mark?" She looked at Mark. He was cornered. He looked from Sarah to me, and then he realized. He looked at me, and he saw the cold, dead look in my eyes. He knew. "You set me up." He snarled at me. "You old witch." "Yes," I said softly. Mark lunged for the check on the table. "I would not do that." "Mr. Miller said." Mark stopped. He looked at the notary. Mr. Miller stood up. He was no longer the quiet man in the beige suit. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a badge. "Mark Sullivan," he said, his voice booming with authority. "I am Detective Miller with the Greenwich Police Department. You are under arrest for attempted grand larceny, wire fraud, and identity theft." "What?" Mark backed away, bumping into the sideboard. "This is entrapment. You cannot prove anything. We have the recording of you soliciting $50,000 for a fraudulent legal fee," Detective Miller said, pulling a pair of handcuffs from his belt. "And we have your wife's statement regarding the misuse of joint funds across state lines." Mark looked at Sarah. "You rat. You sold me out? You got greedy." "Mark," Sarah said, dropping the act instantly. Her voice went cold and flat. "You tried to cut me out?" Detective Miller grabbed Mark's arm, spun him around, and slammed him against the wall. The sound of the handcuffs clicking shut was the sweetest music I had ever heard. "You have the right to remain silent," Miller recited. "Lily," Mark screamed as he was dragged toward the door. "Lily, help me. They are lying. It is a conspiracy. Your mother is crazy. Lily stood frozen in the center of the room. She was holding the text message logs. Her face was a mask of absolute shock. She did not move. She did not speak. She watched as the man she had threatened to abandon me for was hauled out of our dining room like a common thug. I walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. Outside, the quiet cul-de-sac was ablaze with red and blue lights. 2 patrol cars were parked in the driveway. The neighbors were out. I saw Beatrice from the Homeowners Association standing on her lawn in her bathrobe, clutching her phone. I saw the Petersons from next door, peering over the hedge. The public fallout had begun. Mark was shoved into the back of a squad car. He was still shouting, his voice muffled by the glass. Sarah walked out behind the police, lighting a cigarette on my front porch before disappearing into the night. She had played her part. She would vanish back to Yonkers, and I would never see her again. I turned back to the room. Lily was still standing there. The papers slipped from her fingers and scattered across the floor, mingling with the shards of the blue vase that she had broken days ago, a mess that seemed to multiply. "Lily," I said gently. She looked up at me. Her eyes were not filled with gratitude. They were not filled with relief. They were filled with a humiliation so profound it looked like physical pain. "Everyone saw," she whispered. "It is over," I said, taking a step toward her. "He cannot hurt you anymore. Everyone saw." She screamed, her voice cracking. "The neighbors, Beatrice, they saw him in handcuffs." "Lily, that does not matter. Sao Tsing Haling, R. Tsing Hao Dayu. It matters to me," she yelled, backing away from me as if I were the one holding the knife. "You humiliated me. You let him come here. You let me think. Sao Tsing Haling. 2# is greater than you let me believe. Sao Tsing Haling, R. Tsing Hao Dayu." She choked on a sob. "I had to show you the truth," I said. "You did not have to do it like this," she cried. "You did not have to make a spectacle. You wanted to punish me. That is what this was. You wanted to prove you were right and I was stupid in front of the whole world." "I wanted to save your inheritance," I said, my voice hardening. "I wanted to save your life. You ruined my life." She shrieked. "I can never show my face in this town again. Everyone will know I was the idiot who fell for a con man. Everyone will laugh at me." She looked around the room, at the uneaten roast beef, at the spilled wine, at the wreckage of her fantasy. "I hate you," she whispered. "I hate you for being right." She turned and ran. She did not run to her room. She ran out the front door. "Lily?" I called out. I chased her to the porch. I watched as she ran down the driveway, past the police cars that were pulling away. She ran into the darkness of the street, barefoot, her blue dress fluttering in the wind. I stood on the porch under the harsh glare of the motion sensor light. Beatrice was still watching from across the street. She caught my eye. She did not wave. She just stared, her face a mask of judgment and pity. The police sirens faded into the distance. The neighborhood fell silent again. But the silence was different now. It was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of a scandal that would be whispered about over bridge tables and tennis courts for years to come. I walked back inside and closed the heavy oak door. I locked it. I went back to the dining room. I picked up the check for $50,000. I tore it into 4 pieces. I picked up the wine glass Mark had used and dropped it into the trash can. My house was safe. My money was safe. The parasite had been removed. But as I looked at the empty chair where my daughter had sat, I realized the cost of the operation. I had cut out the cancer, but I had taken a vital organ with it. Lily was gone. Not physically. She had nowhere to go. She would be back. But the girl who used to look at me with love was dead. In her place was a woman consumed by shame. And shame is a far more dangerous emotion than anger. I poured myself a glass of wine. I sat at the head of the table, alone, and drank to my hollow victory. The morning after the arrest, the house felt less like a home and more like a crime scene that had been scrubbed clean but still held the memory of violence. The red wine stain on the dining room rug had turned a rusty brown, a permanent scar on the Persian wool. I spent an hour on my hands and knees, scrubbing it with club soda and vinegar, but the mark refused to fade. It was stubborn. It was a reminder. I sat back on my heels, the smell of vinegar stinging my nose. My knees ached. My head throbbed with a hangover that had nothing to do with alcohol and everything to do with emotional exhaustion. Lily had returned 3 hours after she ran out. She had come back quietly, slipping through the back door like a thief. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, heavy and dragging. I heard her bedroom door close. I heard the lock turn. I had waited all morning for her to come down. I had made coffee. I had bought bagels from the bakery she liked. I prepared a script in my head, a speech about forgiveness and moving forward and how we were survivors. I was ready to be the benevolent mother, the rock she could cling to while she healed. At 11 o'clock, she finally appeared. She looked like a ghost. Her face was pale and puffy, her eyes swollen to slits. She was wearing old sweatpants and a stained t-shirt. She did not look at me. She walked straight to the coffee pot, poured a mug, and leaned against the counter, staring out the window at the driveway where the police cars had been the night before. "Good morning," I said softly. She did not answer. She took a sip of coffee, wincing as the hot liquid hit her tongue. "Lily," I tried again. "We need to talk. I know yesterday was howling, doi, traumatic, but it is over. He is gone." She turned slowly to face me. The look in her eyes stopped the words in my throat. I expected sadness. I expected shame, but I did not expect the cold, hard glint of accusation. "Is it?" she asked. Her voice was raspy. "Is it over?" Because my phone has been blowing up all morning. Beatrice posted about it on the neighborhood Facebook group. People are talking. They are saying I was the girlfriend of a felon. They are saying I brought a criminal into our community. People will talk. I said, standing up, "It does not matter. You were a victim, Lily. You were conned. There is no shame in being a victim. There is shame in being a spectacle." She snapped, slamming her mug down on the granite. Coffee splashed over the rim. "You made it a spectacle. Mother, you invited the police. You invited his wife. You set the stage." I stared at her, bewildered. "I did it to protect you. If I had just told you, you would not have believed me. You said yourself you would leave with him. So you decided to humiliate me instead?" She cried. "You could have done it quietly. You could have shown me the dossier in private. But no, you had to have your big moment. You had to be the hero who swoops in and saves the stupid. Naive daughter, I saved your inheritance." I argued, my patience beginning to fray. He was going to take the house. Lily. He was going to steal $50,000 and vanish. "I saved your future. You saved your money." She corrected me, her voice dripping with venom. "That is all you care about. Your money, your house, your reputation. How can you say that?" I felt tears prick my eyes, but I blinked them away. "I did this because I love you. If you loved me," she whispered, leaning forward, "you would have let me have the fantasy. Even for a little while longer, you would have let me be happy. I looked at her, and I felt a chill that went deeper than the bone. You would rather be happy with a lie than face the truth? I asked. Yes, she screamed, because the truth is that I am 23 years old. I have no job. I have no degree. And the only man who ever made me feel special was using me to get to my mother's bank account. That is the truth. And you rubbed my face in it. She began to cry, but they were not tears of remorse. They were tears of self-pity. She was mourning the loss of her delusion, not the loss of her dignity. I wish you had just let him rob me, she sobbed. At least then I would have had someone to blame other than you. At least then I would have had a reason to leave this suffocating house. I stood there, paralyzed. I realized then that the rot went deeper than Mark. Mark was just a symptom. The disease was something else entirely. It was an entitlement so profound, a lack of accountability so absolute, that she could look at the woman who saved her from financial ruin and see only an enemy. I walked over to the table and sat down. I looked at my hands. They were aging. The skin was thin, the veins prominent. I had spent 23 years using these hands to build a cushion for her. I had softened every blow. I had paid every bill. I had fixed every mistake, and in doing so, I had created a monster. I am sorry you feel that way, I said. My voice was quiet. It was devoid of the warmth I had felt only minutes ago. I do not want your apology. Lily spat, wiping her nose on her sleeve. I want you to fix it. I need to get away from here. I cannot show my face in town. I need to go to Europe. I need a fresh start. You need to pay for a trip. It is the least you can do after ruining my life. I looked up at her. A trip? I repeated. Yes, Italy or France. Somewhere far away. I need to heal. Mom, and you owe me. You owe me. The words hung in the air between us. I looked at the coffee stain on the counter. I looked at the daughter who was demanding a vacation as compensation for her own poor judgment. Something inside me clicked shut. It was the sound of a vault door closing. For years, I had been driven by the fear of being alone. I had tolerated her laziness, her disrespect, and her manipulation because I was terrified of the silence. I thought that if I just gave enough, if I just loved enough, she would eventually grow up and love me back. But love is not a transaction, and you cannot save someone who does not want to be saved. You can only drown with them. I felt a strange sensation wash over me. It was not anger. It was not sadness. It was clarity. It was the cold, refreshing clarity of a winter morning. No, I said. Lily stopped crying. She looked at me, confused. What? No, I said again. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. I am not paying for a trip to Europe. I am not paying for a fresh start. But 小雨静好零 2 hash is greater than but I am the victim. She stammered. You have to help me. I have helped you, I said, standing up and smoothing down my skirt. I saved you from a con artist. That was my final act of parenting. Lily, what are you talking about? She took a step back, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. I am talking about reality. I said, the reality you have been avoiding for 23 years. Mark is gone, but the problem remains. The problem is that you are an adult who acts like a child, and I am a mother who has allowed it. You cannot do this to me, she whispered. I have anxiety. I am traumatized. We are all traumatized. I said, life is traumatic, but you are going to have to face it without my checkbook. I walked past her. I did not reach out to touch her. I did not offer a hug. I felt light. I felt empty. Yes, but it was a clean emptiness. It was the emptiness of a room that has finally been cleared of clutter. "Where are you going?" Lily asked, her voice rising in panic. "I am going to the garden." I said, "I have weeds to pull." I walked to the back door. "Mom," she screamed after me, "do not walk away from me. I hate you." I paused with my hand on the doorknob. The words would have devastated me a week ago. They would have sent me spiraling into guilt and appeasement. But today, they just sounded like noise. Like the screeching of a child who has been told she cannot have candy for dinner. "I know," I said, without turning around, "but you will survive." I stepped out into the cool air. The sun was shining. The birds were singing. The world had not ended. Inside the house, my daughter was weeping, not for me, but for the loss of her comfort. She was mourning the death of the automated teller machine. Not the mother. I knelt in the dirt and began to pull the weeds, one by one, root and stem. It was hard work. It was dirty work. But as I cleared the earth, making space for something new to grow, I knew it was the most important work I had ever done. The aftermath was not about fixing the past. It was about preparing for the future. And for the first time in a long time, that future belonged to me. The for sale sign on the front lawn had a sticker slapped across it that read "Sold" in bright red letters. It had taken exactly 4 days to sell the house. In Greenwich, a colonial revival in a school district this prestigious does not linger on the market, especially when the owner is motivated to liquidate. I stood in the foyer for the last time. The house was empty. The movers had come and gone, taking the antique furniture, the Persian rugs, and the silver tea service. The rooms echoed with a hollow, ghostly sound. The sunlight streamed through the unadorned windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. It looked like a skeleton of the life I had lived for 20 years. Lily sat on the front steps, scrolling through her phone. She was surrounded by 3 large Louis Vuitton suitcases. She wore a wide-brimmed sun hat and oversized sunglasses. She looked like a movie star waiting for a limousine. I walked out the front door, the keys to the house heavy in my palm. I locked the door. The click of the deadbolt was the final period at the end of a very long, very painful sentence. Finally, Lily Seahead. Standing up, the movers took forever. I hope they are careful with my vanity table. Did you make sure they packed my silk robes in the wardrobe box? I turned to face her. I was holding a single envelope in my hand. The movers were very professional. I said, "Everything is on its way." "Good," Lily said, adjusting her sunglasses. "So, what is the plan? Are we flying first class?" I assume the new place in Florida has a pool. I looked up Sarasota online. It looks tacky, but I suppose I can make do with a beach view for a few months until I figure out my next move. I looked at her. She was so confident, so utterly secure in the belief that she was the center of my universe. She believed that even after the con, even after the insults, even after she wished for my death, I would still carry her. "I am flying first class," I said. "My flight leaves out of John F. Kennedy in 4 hours." "Okay," Lily said, reaching for the handle of her largest suitcase. "Let us call the Uber then. I do not want to be late for the lounge." "Lily," I said. My voice was calm. It was the calm of the eye of the storm. "You are not coming with me." Lily froze. Her hand hovered over the suitcase handle. She laughed, a nervous, high-pitched titter. What? Stop joking. Mom, it is not funny. I am not joking. I said, the community I am moving to is called The Palms. It is a 55-plus active living community. No children allowed. No residents under the age of 55. So? She shrugged. We can get an exception. You always get exceptions. I did not ask for an exception. I said, I signed the contract. Just me. One occupant. Lily pulled her sunglasses off. Her eyes were wide with a dawning horror. She looked at the empty house. She looked at the sold sign. She looked at me. But, Sao Yuzing Hao Ling, 2 hashes greater than where am I supposed to live? She asked. Her voice sounded very small. I do not know. I said, you are 23 years old. You have a college education. Mostly, you have your health. You have your freedom. I extended the envelope toward her. What is this? She asked, snatching it. That is the contact information for a women's shelter in Stamford. I said, and a bus ticket to the city, and $200 in cash. That should be enough for food for a week, if you are frugal. $200? She screamed. Are you insane? I cannot live on $200. Where am I going to sleep tonight? That is a problem for you to solve. I said, for 23 years, I solved every problem for you, and look where it got us. You tried to rob me. You tried to replace me. You wished I was dead so you could have my money. I did not mean it, she wailed, tears streaming down her face. I was stressed. I was manipulated. We are all responsible for our choices. I said, I am responsible for enabling you. And today, I am making a different choice. I pointed to the 3 Louis Vuitton suitcases. Those suitcases are worth $2,000 each. I said, I suggest you sell them. That should cover a deposit on a studio apartment. You cannot do this, she shrieked, grabbing my arm. Her nails dug into my coat. I am your daughter. You have to take care of me. It is the law. I gently peeled her fingers off my arm. No, I said, it is not the law, and it is not love. It is hostage negotiation, and I am done paying the ransom. A black town car pulled up to the curb. The driver stepped out and opened the trunk. That is my ride. I said, Mom, Lily screamed. She threw herself onto the pavement, clinging to her suitcases like a castaway clinging to debris. Please, I am sorry. I will be good. I will get a job. Do not leave me here. I walked to the car. The driver took my single bag. I did not look back at the house. I did not look back at the neighborhood where I had spent half my life trying to be the perfect mother. I got into the back seat. The leather was cool and smelled of mint. John F. Kennedy Airport. Ma'am? The driver asked. Yes, I said. And please, play some music. Jazz, if you have it. The car pulled away. I looked in the side mirror. Lily was standing on the curb. She looked tiny. She was alone with her expensive luggage and her cheap reality. She was screaming something, but the soundproof glass cut her off. I turned my head and looked forward. The road ahead was open. I was going to a place where the sun shone every day, where I could paint, where I could drink wine with women who did not want my money, only my company. I was going to spend every cent of David's insurance on myself. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. It was not a tear of regret. It was a tear of relief. It was the feeling of a heavy backpack being dropped after a long, uphill hike. I had lost a daughter. Yes, but I had found myself, and as the car merged onto the highway, heading toward the horizon, I realized that was a trade I was finally willing to make.